Marcus Chen pressed his back against the cold metal wall of the research station. His breathing came in short bursts as alien footsteps echoed through the corridors. The Zephyrian hunters had found them again. The mining station on Kepler 442b had been humanity's furthest outpost until 3 days ago. Now it was a tomb filled with the bodies of his colleagues. Marcus clutched the datapad containing their research findings. The information could change everything if he could somehow get it back to Earth. A shadow moved past the window. The creature stood 9 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Its elongated skull housed 3 black eyes that could see in complete darkness. The Zephyrians had been hunting humans across the galaxy for months, destroying every colony they found. Marcus held his breath as the alien patrol moved past his hiding spot. He needed to reach the communication array on the upper level, but the entire station crawled with these hunters. His hand moved to the weapon at his side, a standard plasma rifle that felt useless against their superior technology. The sound of metal scraping against metal made him freeze. Someone else was moving through the station. Marcus peered around the corner and saw a figure in strange armor walking calmly down the main corridor. The person moved with confidence, completely ignoring the alien patrols that should have detected them instantly. The figure stopped directly in front of 3 Zephyrian warriors. Marcus expected to witness another human death, but instead watched in amazement as the aliens backed away. Their color-shifting skin turned pale white, a sign of extreme fear that Marcus had read about in xenobiology reports. The armored figure spoke in a voice that carried clearly through the station's thin atmosphere. It was a woman, her words calm and measured despite facing 3 deadly predators. "You have taken enough," she said. "Leave this place and return to your ships." The lead Zephyrian made a sound like breaking glass. Its translator device crackled to life. "Human female, you do not command us. We are the apex hunters of this galaxy. Your species exists only because we allow it." The woman reached for something at her side. Marcus squinted through the dim lighting and saw her hand rest on what looked like an ancient spear. The weapon seemed completely out of place among the high-tech surroundings of the research station. "I have walked between worlds longer than your civilization has existed," she replied. "I have seen empires rise and fall like waves on an endless shore. Today you will learn why humans refuse to kneel." One of the aliens lunged forward with impossible speed. Its forearms extended razor-sharp claws that could slice through titanium armor. The woman moved faster. Her spear appeared in her hands as if summoned from thin air, and she drove it through the creature's chest before it could complete its attack. Marcus blinked hard, certain he was seeing things. The wounded Zephyrian should have collapsed immediately. Instead, black energy crackled around the spear wound. The alien's 3 eyes went wide as its body began to convulse. "Impossible," it whispered through its translator. "The old weapons were destroyed millennia ago." The woman pulled her spear free and the alien fell to the ground. But instead of dying, something extraordinary happened. The creature's wounds began to heal at an incredible rate. Its torn flesh knitted back together, and its eyes regained focus. The Zephyrian stood up slowly, looking at its own hands in confusion. "What have you done to me?" it asked. "I have given you a choice," the woman replied. "Touch my lance and live. Feel what it means to carry the burden of mortality while possessing the gift of resurrection. You can continue hunting innocent people, knowing that every death will weigh on your conscience for eternity, or you can choose a different path." The other 2 Zephyrians attacked simultaneously. The woman spun her spear in a complex pattern that seemed to defy physics. Where the weapon passed, reality itself seemed to bend. Both aliens were struck down, and both experienced the same impossible healing process. Marcus watched the 3 Zephyrian warriors struggle with their new existence. They kept touching their chests where mortal wounds had been, trying to understand what had happened to them. Their skin colors shifted through the entire spectrum, indicating extreme emotional confusion. "The lance carries an ancient curse," the woman explained. "Every being it touches becomes immortal, but at a terrible price. You will remember every life you have taken. You will feel their pain as your own. You will understand the weight of existence in ways your species never has before." The lead Zephyrian looked at its hands again. "Who are you?" "What are you?" "I am Cassandra, last guardian of the Soul Archive. My people created weapons designed to teach rather than destroy. This lance has been my companion for 3,000 years, showing aggressors the true cost of violence." Marcus felt his legs give out. 3,000 years? That was impossible. Humans hadn't even achieved spaceflight until recently. Yet this woman spoke as if she had witnessed the entire history of human expansion into the galaxy. The Zephyrians were backing away now, their earlier confidence completely shattered. The wounded aliens kept touching their healing injuries, overwhelmed by sensations they had never experienced before. "We will withdraw," the leader finally said. "But this is not over, Guardian. Our fleet commanders will want to know about you." "Let them come," Cassandra replied. "I have been waiting for this conversation for a very long time." The aliens retreated toward their ships, moving like creatures who had suddenly discovered the concept of mortality, despite being unable to die. Marcus remained hidden until their footsteps faded completely. Cassandra stood alone in the corridor, her spear held at her side. She turned toward Marcus's hiding spot as if she had known he was there all along. "You can come out now," she said gently. "We have much to discuss and very little time to do it." Marcus stepped into the corridor on shaking legs. The research station felt different now, as if the very air had changed. He looked at this mysterious woman who claimed to be 3,000 years old and carried a weapon that could resurrect the dead. "What happens now?" he asked. Cassandra smiled, but her expression carried the weight of ages. "Now we prepare for war. The Zephyrians will return with their entire fleet, but this time humanity will be ready for them." She began walking toward the communication array, her ancient spear gleaming in the station's artificial light. Marcus followed, carrying data that seemed insignificant compared to the revelations he had just witnessed. The journey to Earth took 14 days aboard Cassandra's ship, a vessel that defied every principle of physics Marcus thought he understood. The hull appeared to be made from crystallized starlight, and the engines ran on principles that predated human civilization by thousands of years. Marcus spent most of the trip in the ship's library, reading through archives that chronicled humanity's true history. According to these records, humans had been spacefaring for far longer than anyone realized. Ancient Earth had been part of a galactic confederation that existed before recorded history. "Your textbooks got it wrong," Cassandra explained as she joined him in the library. "Humanity didn't begin reaching for the stars in the 21st century. We had already been among them for millennia before retreating back to Earth." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it existed 3,000 years ago. Hundreds of human colonies dotted the star map, connected by trade routes and communication networks. Then the display shifted, showing those same colonies going dark one by one. "What happened?" Marcus asked. "The Convergence War," Cassandra replied. "Multiple species decided that humans had grown too powerful. They formed an alliance and systematically destroyed every human outpost beyond the Sol system. Only a few of us escaped with the ancient technology." Marcus stared at the display. Entire civilizations had been erased from history, leaving only Earth's population to slowly rebuild from the ashes of their former glory. Why didn't anyone remember? "Where are the records?" "Memory fades when survival becomes the only priority," Cassandra said. "The refugees who made it back to Earth chose to hide our true history. They feared that knowledge of our past might bring the alien alliance back to finish what they started." The ship's communication system chimed softly. Cassandra moved to the control panel and activated the incoming message. Admiral Sarah Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Fleet appeared on the screen, her expression grim. "Cassandra, we've detected massive energy signatures approaching the outer system. Long-range sensors show at least 50 Zephyrian warships moving toward Earth. They'll be here in 6 hours." "Understood, Admiral. Are the other Guardians in position?" Marcus blinked in surprise. "Other Guardians?" Cassandra had never mentioned that she wasn't alone. "Positive," Rodriguez continued. "Guardian Chen is stationed near Mars with the Hammer of Ages. Guardian Okafor holds position by Jupiter with the Singing Blade. Guardian Petrov waits in the asteroid belt with the Shield of Sorrows. All ancient weapons are charged and ready." "Excellent. Begin evacuation of the inner colonies. This battle will determine whether humanity reclaims its place among the stars or falls back into hiding for another 1,000 years." The transmission ended, leaving Marcus with dozens of questions. He followed Cassandra to the ship's command center, where she began inputting navigation coordinates. "There are others like you?" he asked. "4 of us survived the Convergence War," she replied. "We've spent 3 millennia preparing for the day when humanity would need to defend itself again. Each Guardian carries one of the ancient weapons, artifacts created by human scientists who learned to merge technology with the fundamental forces of reality. Through the view screen, Marcus could see Earth growing larger as they approached. The blue marble looked peaceful from space, unaware that its fate would be decided in the next few hours. What makes these weapons so special? Cassandra's hand moved to her lance. They were designed by philosophers as much as engineers. Each weapon embodies a different aspect of human nature. My lance represents redemption and the possibility of change. Chen's hammer symbolizes justice and the consequences of actions. Okafor's blade carries the music of human creativity and hope. Petrov's shield reflects our capacity for sacrifice and protection. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere, heading toward the hidden Guardian facility beneath the Himalayas. Marcus felt gravity shift as they descended, through layers of cloud, and approached a mountain peak that split open to reveal a massive underground hangar. Welcome to the Sol. Archive, Cassandra said as they landed, the last repository of pre-war human technology. The hangar contained dozens of ships similar to Cassandra's vessel. Technicians in advanced environmental suits moved between the craft, performing maintenance and upgrades. Marcus noticed that many of the workers appeared to be from various alien species. Not all aliens supported the Convergence War, Cassandra explained, noticing his confusion. Many refugees from different worlds sought sanctuary here when their own civilizations were destroyed by the Alliance. Earth became a haven for anyone who opposed the galaxy's descent into xenophobic violence. They walked through corridors carved from living rock, past laboratories where human and alien scientists worked together on projects that seemed to blend magic with science. Marcus saw weapons being charged with crystallized starlight, defensive systems powered by quantum entanglement, and communication arrays that could send messages across galactic distances instantly. How is this possible? Marcus asked. Our technology level shouldn't be anywhere near this advanced. Earth's public technology was deliberately limited, Cassandra replied. The Guardians made a choice to keep humanity's true capabilities hidden until the day we would need them. That day has arrived. They entered a vast chamber where the other three Guardians waited. Chen stood near a massive hammer that seemed to be forged from compressed neutron star matter. Okafor held a blade that hummed with harmonic frequencies that made the air itself sing. Petrov leaned on a shield that reflected not just light, but seemed to bend reality around its surface. Status report, Cassandra requested as they approached. Zephyrian fleet is 2 hours out, Chen replied. Intelligence suggests they've brought every warship in their armada. They're not taking any chances after the encounter on Kepler 442b. Good, Okafor said, her blade's song growing louder. It's time the galaxy remembered why humanity was feared before the war. Our ancestors didn't conquer through superior numbers or advanced technology. They succeeded because they understood something other species never grasped. Which is? Marcus asked. Petrov smiled grimly as his shield's surface rippled. That true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary and when redemption is possible. Alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The Zephyrian fleet had arrived ahead of schedule and was already engaging the outer defense platforms. Marcus watched through the facility's monitors as energy beams crossed the void between ships, creating brilliant flashes that illuminated the darkness of space. Guardian weapons to full charge, Cassandra commanded. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity's guardians never truly left. We've simply been waiting for the right moment to return. The four guardians raised their ancient weapons and Marcus felt reality itself respond to their presence. The very air seemed to hold its breath as 3,000 years of hidden preparation finally came to an end. Earth's greatest battle was about to begin. The battle began at dawn over Earth's Terminator line, where day met night in a perfect curve of light and shadow. Marcus watched from the Sol Archives command center as the Zephyrian armada emerged from hyperspace like angry hornets. 50 massive warships arranged themselves in attack formation, their hulls gleaming with weapons that could turn planets into cosmic dust. Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system. All Earth Defense Fleet units hold position. Do not engage until the Guardians give the signal. Marcus counted 23 human ships facing odds of more than 2 to 1. The Earth vessels looked ancient compared to the sleek Zephyrian warships, but he was beginning to understand that appearances could be deceiving when it came to human technology. Guardian Chen, begin your approach, Cassandra commanded. On the main screen, Marcus watched a single ship detach from the human formation. The vessel looked like a flying cathedral, all Gothic spires and crystalline windows that caught starlight and transformed it into something beautiful. Chen's voice came through clearly despite the growing interference from weapon discharges. Hammer of Ages charging to full capacity. Beginning the demonstration. The Zephyrian Fleet Commander's translation device broadcast across all frequencies. Human vessels, you will surrender immediately or face total annihilation. Your species has interfered with our hunting grounds for the final time. Hunting grounds? Chen replied, his voice carrying the weight of 3,000 years of anger. You mistake the galaxy for your private preserve. Allow me to remind you why that assumption is dangerous. Chen's ship accelerated toward the Zephyrian formation with impossible speed. Energy beams from a dozen enemy vessels converged on his position, creating explosions that should have vaporized any known material. Instead, the Gothic vessel emerged from the firestorm completely undamaged. The massive hammer materialized in space beside Chen's ship, growing to the size of a space station. The weapon's head blazed with compressed starlight while its handle extended through dimensions that normal physics couldn't explain. Marcus felt his understanding of reality stretch as he watched the impossible artifact take shape. The Hammer of Ages does not destroy, Chen announced. It judges. Every being who falls before it experiences the weight of their actions. You have hunted innocent species across a dozen star systems. Feel now what your victims felt. The hammer struck the lead Zephyrian warship with the force of a collapsing star. Instead of exploding, the enemy vessel began to glow with golden light. The ship's hull became transparent, revealing the crew inside as they experienced something beyond physical pain. Marcus watched alien warriors who had never known fear suddenly understand terror. Hunters who had taken lives without thought felt every moment of their victims' final agonies. The Zephyrian command crew collapsed as the weight of their species' crimes crashed down on their consciousness like a tidal wave. Impossible, the fleet commander whispered through his translator. What manner of weapon causes the guilty to judge themselves? The kind created by a species that learned wisdom through suffering, Chen replied. Your people have never known defeat. You've never been hunted. You've never felt helpless while predators stalked your children. Today, you learn what your victims experienced. 3 more Zephyrian ships moved to attack Chen's vessel. The hammer struck each one in turn, and each crew experienced the same crushing realization of their actions' true consequences. Within minutes, 7 enemy warships hung motionless in space, their crews overwhelmed by newfound understanding of morality. Guardian Okafor, your turn, Cassandra said calmly. Another ship emerged from the human formation, this one resembling a massive musical instrument carved from pure crystal. Harmonic frequencies began broadcasting across all communication channels, creating music that touched something deeper than hearing. The singing blade calls to the spark of creativity that exists in every living being, Okafor announced. You have spent your lives destroying beauty. Now you will help create it. The crystalline blade appeared beside her ship, its surface reflecting not light but the hopes and dreams of every sentient being in the solar system. The weapon sang with frequencies that bypassed normal senses and spoke directly to the soul. When the blade touched the next group of Zephyrian vessels, their crews experienced something no hunter had ever felt before. They saw the galaxy not as a collection of resources to exploit, but as a canvas for infinite possibility. Alien warriors who had known only violence suddenly understood the joy of creation. Marcus watched in amazement as the affected Zephyrian ships began broadcasting art across all frequencies. Music, poetry, visual displays of stunning beauty flowed from vessels that had been instruments of destruction moments before. The transformation was so complete that several enemy ships stopped fighting and began cooperating with each other to create more complex artistic expressions. What are you doing to my fleet? The Zephyrian commander demanded. We're giving them back something your species lost long ago, Okafor replied. The ability to create instead of merely consume. Beauty instead of terror. Hope instead of despair. The commander's ship fired directly at Okafor's vessel with weapons powerful enough to crack moons. The energy blast struck her ship and was absorbed completely, transformed into harmonic frequencies that spread throughout the battlefield like a calming balm. Guardian Petrov, demonstrate the Shield of Sorrows, Cassandra ordered. The third Guardian ship approached the battle zone just as the Zephyrian commander called for his remaining vessels to form a final attack formation. 15 warships concentrated their firepower on a single point, creating an energy discharge that outshone the sun. Petrov's ship materialized in the path of the attack, and the Shield of Sorrows expanded to protect not just his vessel, but several damaged Zephyrian ships that had been caught in the crossfire. The ancient artifact absorbed every joule of destructive energy and transformed it into protective barriers around the wounded vessels. The Shield of Sorrows teaches the value of sacrifice, Petrov announced. Every being it protects learns what it means to put others before themselves. You have lived as predators who take without giving. Now you will understand the joy of protection. The shield's energy spread to encompass the entire battlefield, creating protective barriers around human and Zephyrian ships alike. Alien crews who had been preparing to ram enemy vessels suddenly found themselves unable to harm anyone, their weapons systems literally refusing to function in ways that could cause injury. But more than that, the affected Zephyrians began experiencing something their species had never known: the overwhelming desire to protect others. Hunters who had spent their lives taking began coordinating rescue operations for damaged ships. Warriors who had known only conquest started sharing supplies and medical assistance with former enemies. Impossible, the commander whispered, his voice breaking. My hunters are helping human refugees. They're protecting the species they came to destroy. What kind of weapons change the fundamental nature of living beings? Cassandra finally spoke, her voice carrying across all communication channels. The kind created by a species that learned to see enemies as future friends. You came here expecting another easy hunt. Instead, you've encountered weapons designed not to kill, but to teach. Not to conquer, but to redeem. Marcus realized that the battle was essentially over. More than half the Zephyrian fleet hung motionless in space, their crews experiencing emotions and concepts their species had never encountered. The remaining ships seemed uncertain whether to continue fighting or try to understand what had happened to their companions. This is impossible, the commander said again. Weapons cannot change the basic nature of a species. Technology cannot alter consciousness itself. Human technology can, Cassandra replied simply, because it was created by beings who understood that consciousness is not fixed, that any creature can choose to become something better than what it was born to be. The Zephyrian command ship drifted closer to the human formation, its weapons powered down. Marcus could see through the transparent hull that the alien crew was arguing among themselves, their color-shifting skin cycling through emotional spectrums they had never experienced before. The real test was about to begin. The Zephyrian commander's ship approached under a flag of parley, its hull scarred from weapon impacts but intact. Marcus watched from the Sol archive as the alien vessel docked with Admiral Rodriguez's flagship. He had never seen a member of the Zephyrian command hierarchy up close, only the hunters who had devastated human colonies. Commander Vex Thaler emerged from his ship flanked by 2 bodyguards. The alien stood nearly 10 feet tall, his forearms moving in complex patterns that Marcus recognized as a formal greeting. His color-shifting skin cycled through deep blues and purples, indicating confusion and wariness according to the xenobiology files. Admiral Rodriguez met him in the flagship's primary conference room, with Cassandra participating via holographic projection. Marcus listened to the conversation through the archive's communication system, translating software converting the alien's complex vocalizations into understandable speech. Guardian Cassandra, Vex Thaler began, his 3 eyes focusing on her image. Your weapons have done something to my crews that should be impossible. Warriors who have spent centuries perfecting the hunt now refuse to harm any living being. How do you explain this? Explanation is simple, Cassandra replied. Your people have encountered technology designed by beings who understood that consciousness can evolve. The ancient weapons don't force change. They simply remove the barriers that prevent growth. The commander's skin shifted to angry reds and oranges. You speak of growth as if it were desirable. The Zephyrian way has remained unchanged for 10,000 years. We are apex predators because we do not allow weakness like compassion to corrupt our nature. Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward across the conference table. Yet your own warriors are currently helping repair damaged human ships and sharing medical supplies with wounded crews. Are you saying this behavior represents corruption? Vex Thaler's bodyguards shifted nervously. Their skin colors indicated the same confusion their commander displayed. Marcus realized that the Guardian weapons had affected them too, creating internal conflict between their trained responses and newly awakened empathy. This is precisely what I mean, the commander said. My hunters help enemies instead of destroying them. They show mercy to prey species. They question orders that would have been followed without hesitation yesterday. Your weapons have turned them into something weak and useless. Cassandra's hologram smiled sadly. Tell me, Commander, what is the Zephyrian birth rate? The question caught the alien off guard. His skin color shifted through several confused patterns before settling on a neutral gray. Birth rate? What relevance does that have? Your species has existed for 10,000 years as apex predators, Cassandra continued. Yet according to our intelligence, your population has remained essentially static during that entire period. No growth, no expansion beyond replacing losses. Why do you think that is? Marcus watched the commander's three eyes narrow in thought. The alien had clearly never considered this question before. Efficiency, Vex Thaler finally replied. We maintain optimal population levels to prevent resource competition. Or perhaps, Admiral Rodriguez suggested, a species that defines itself purely through domination and violence eventually stops seeing the point of creating new life. When existence has no purpose beyond hunting and killing, why bring new beings into that existence? The commander's skin flashed through rapid color changes. Marcus recognized the patterns as indicating extreme agitation. One of the bodyguards stepped forward and spoke in rapid, high-pitched tones. The translation software struggled with the rapid speech. Sub-Commander Keth Nilara asks permission to speak, the computer finally announced. Vex Thaler gestured permission, and the smaller alien addressed the humans directly. I was struck by the hammer of ages during the battle. I experienced something impossible. I felt the fear of every creature my hunting pack has killed over the past 50 years. But more than that, I understood why they feared death. The sub-commander's skin shifted to colors Marcus had never seen in the xenobiology files, soft greens and golds that seemed to indicate wonder and revelation. They feared death because they had reasons to live, Keth Nilara continued. Families to protect, projects to complete, beauty to experience. I realized that in 50 years of hunting, I have never had a reason to live beyond the next kill. I have never created anything. I have never protected anyone. I have never experienced beauty. Commander Vex Thaler's skin flashed angry red. Weakness. Exactly what I warned against. The human weapons have infected you with prey species thinking. Have they? Cassandra asked quietly. Or have they simply shown your people what they were missing? Commander, I want to show you something. Will you agree to a neural link with our computer systems? The alien commander's bodyguards moved protectively closer, but Vex Thaler raised one hand to stop them. What manner of link? Nothing invasive. Simply a way to share information directly, rather than through translation devices. You would see what we see when we look at your people. After a moment's consideration, the commander nodded agreement. Technicians brought in a neural interface device, a crystalline headset that pulsed with soft blue light. When Vex Thaler placed it on his elongated skull, his three eyes went wide with shock. Marcus watched the alien's skin cycle through every color in the spectrum as information flooded his consciousness. The commander was seeing the galaxy through human eyes, experiencing the perspective of a species that had learned to find joy in creation, rather than destruction. Impossible, Vex Thaler whispered. Your species sees beauty in star formation. You find satisfaction in helping other civilizations develop. You create art that serves no survival purpose. How do you function with such inefficiency? We function better because of it, Admiral Rodriguez replied. Human civilization has survived the destruction of our ancient colonies because we learned that cooperation creates stronger bonds than domination. We help others because it makes us stronger, not weaker. The neural link continued feeding information to the alien commander. Marcus could see the exact moment when understanding began to dawn. Vex Thaler's skin shifted to soft blues and violets. Colors the xenobiology files indicated represented profound thoughtfulness. Your weapons, the commander said slowly. They don't change consciousness. They reveal consciousness that was already there but suppressed. Exactly, Cassandra confirmed. Every sentient species possesses the capacity for creativity, empathy, and growth. Most simply never explore those capacities because their societies discourage such development. Sub-Commander Keth Nilara stepped forward again. Commander, the crews affected by the Guardian weapons report increased satisfaction with existence. They described feeling more alive than they have in centuries. Perhaps these humans offer something valuable rather than corruption. Vexthalar removed the neural interface and stood quietly for several minutes. His skin gradually settled into a pattern Marcus had never seen before in the xenobiology files. Deep purples streaked with gold, indicating what the computer suggested might be profound contemplation mixed with hope. "If what you show me is accurate," the commander finally said, "then my species has existed in a state of artificial limitation for 10 millennia. We have been prisoners of our own definitions of strength." "Change is possible," Cassandra said gently, "but it requires choosing a different path. Your people can continue hunting and conquering until the galaxy contains nothing but empty worlds, or they can learn to build and create and discover purposes beyond mere survival." The alien commander looked at his bodyguards, both of whom had been subtly affected by proximity to the Guardian weapons. Their skin colors showed the same mixture of confusion and possibility that their commander displayed. "What would you have us do?" Vexthalar asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything both species believed about themselves and each other. 3 weeks after the battle, Marcus stood in what had once been a Zephyrian hunting ship and was now something unprecedented in galactic history. The vessel's weapon systems had been converted into fabrication arrays. Its holding cells for captured prey had become workshops where human and alien engineers collaborated on projects that neither species could have imagined alone. "Commander," Vexthalar moved through the ship with an ease that surprised Marcus. The alien's skin maintained the purple and gold coloration that seemed to be his new default state, occasionally shifting to excited yellows when he discovered something particularly interesting. "This propulsion design," Vexthalar said, examining a holographic display with his 3 eyes, "combines Zephyrian spatial manipulation with human temporal mechanics. The efficiency is 30% higher than anything either of our species achieved independently." Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the human engineers who had volunteered for the joint project, nodded enthusiastically. "That's what makes this so exciting. Your people understand space in ways we never considered. Our people understand time in ways you never explored. Together, we're discovering possibilities that neither of us could reach alone." Marcus watched the collaboration with wonder. 3 weeks ago, these same beings had been trying to kill each other. Now they worked together with an energy and creativity that produced innovations daily. "Dr. Chen," Cassandra's voice spoke through his communication device. "Please report to the bridge. We have an incoming transmission from the hegemony." The mention of the hegemony made everyone in the workshop stop what they were doing. Marcus had learned about them from the archive records. The hegemony was the alliance of species that had destroyed human civilization 3,000 years ago. They ruled most of the galaxy through fear and overwhelming military force. Marcus made his way to the bridge where Vexthalar joined him, along with several other humans and Zephyrians. The main screen activated, revealing a figure that made Marcus's blood run cold. The being on screen stood 12 feet tall with crystalline skin that reflected light in sharp, painful angles. Its face had no features that Marcus could recognize as eyes or mouth, yet somehow conveyed an impression of absolute arrogance. When it spoke, the voice came from hidden speakers that made the words seem to originate from inside the listener's head. "I am Executor Prime Zek Vorthak of the Hegemony Council," the being announced. "We have detected unauthorized use of prescribed technology in this system. The weapons you have deployed were specifically banned under the Convergence Accords of 2047 standard years ago." Cassandra's holographic form appeared on the bridge. "Executor, I am Guardian Cassandra of the Sol Archive. The weapons you reference were never subject to your authority. They were created by human civilization before your hegemony existed." The crystalline being's form shifted, light refracting through its body in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Human civilization was terminated by lawful hegemony action. Any surviving technology defaults to our control under salvage protocols." "Salvage protocols?" Vexthalar stepped forward, his skin flashing angry reds. "You speak of genocide as if it were a legal procedure. Zephyrian Commander, you will withdraw your forces immediately and report for disciplinary action. Your species exists under hegemony protection. Cooperation with humans violates the terms of that protection." Marcus felt something change in the room's atmosphere. The Zephyrians present began displaying aggressive color patterns, but not directed at the humans. Their anger was focused on the hegemony representative. Subcommander Keth Nilara spoke first. "Executor, Our recent cooperation with humans has produced advances in technology, art, and philosophy that surpass anything achieved under hegemony guidance. Why would we abandon such beneficial collaboration? Because, the executor replied with mechanical precision, advancement beyond approved parameters threatens galactic stability. The hegemony maintains peace through careful control of technological and social development. Unregulated progress leads to chaos and conflict. Dr. Kim moved to stand beside the Zephyrian subcommander. What you call stability looks like stagnation from here. How many species have you prevented from reaching their full potential? The executor's crystalline form flared brighter. Human, you will not address the Hegemony Council without permission. Your species forfeited the right to speak in galactic affairs when you chose chaos over order. Chaos? Cassandra's hologram stepped forward. Show them, Marcus. Display the recent collaboration results. Marcus activated the ship's main display, showing a montage of human Zephyrian joint projects. New medical techniques that worked on both species' physiologies. Art forms that combined human emotional expression with Zephyrian spatial understanding. Diplomatic frameworks that valued both human creativity and Zephyrian efficiency. This is what you call chaos, Marcus said, finding his voice despite his fear. Species working together instead of in isolation. Beings discovering they can be more than what they thought possible. Growth instead of stagnation. The executor studied the displays for several minutes. When it spoke again, its voice carried undertones that made the bridge's metal surfaces vibrate uncomfortably. This precisely illustrates the danger. Species that develop beyond approved parameters begin to question established authority. They form alliances not sanctioned by the hegemony. They develop technologies that could threaten galactic order. Or, Vexthaler said, his skin now displaying patterns Marcus had never seen before. They might discover that the hegemony's version of order depends on keeping everyone weak and isolated. The alien commander's words struck Marcus like a revelation. He thought about the hegemony's response to human Zephyrian cooperation. No concern for the violence that cooperation had prevented. No interest in the innovations being created. Only fear that beings might discover they could work together without hegemony oversight. Zephyrian commander, the executor said, its form shifting to more aggressive refractive patterns. You have been contaminated by exposure to prescribed technology. Report immediately for memory adjustment and attitude correction. Memory adjustment? Sub-Commander Kethnalara's skin flashed through rapid angry patterns. You would erase our experiences of cooperation and growth? When those experiences threaten stability, yes. The hegemony has maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years by preventing the kind of uncontrolled development that leads to species conflicts. Dr. Kim looked at Marcus with growing understanding. They didn't destroy human civilization because we were violent. They destroyed it because we were showing other species that cooperation was possible. Cassandra nodded grimly. The hegemony maintains control by ensuring that no species can develop enough to challenge their authority. They destroyed our ancient civilization because we were helping others grow beyond approved limitations. The executor's form brightened to painful intensity. Enough. Guardian Cassandra, you will surrender all prescribed technology immediately. Zephyrian forces will withdraw and report for adjustment. Human resistance will result in total species termination. Marcus felt the weight of the moment. The choice facing them was the same one humanity had faced 3,000 years ago. Submit to forced stagnation or fight for the right to grow and help others grow. Executor, Cassandra said calmly, I have a counter-proposal. Why don't you experience the ancient technology for yourself before making final decisions? Touch my lance and live. Feel what growth and cooperation actually mean instead of simply fearing them. The crystalline being's form shifted to patterns of pure rage. You dare suggest that the Hegemony Council submit to unauthorized consciousness alteration? I suggest that you discover what you've been trying to prevent for 3 millennia, Cassandra replied. The transformation of isolated, fearful beings into cooperative, creative ones. The bridge fell silent as the executor considered the challenge. Marcus realized that everything depended on what happened next. The hegemony response came not in words but in action. Within hours of the transmission, massive fleets began emerging from hyperspace throughout the solar system. Marcus counted over 200 warships, each one larger than anything in the earlier Zephyrian armada. The Sol Archives Command Center became a nexus of activity as human and Zephyrian crews worked together to coordinate defenses. Marcus watched Commander Vexthaler study tactical displays alongside Admiral Rodriguez, their different perspectives creating strategies that neither could have developed alone. The hegemony uses the same approach they've employed for 3,000 years, Cassandra explained as she reviewed the incoming fleet positions. Overwhelming force designed to crush resistance before it can organize. They've never faced coordinated opposition from species working together. Dr. Kim approached carrying a tablet filled with energy readings. The Guardian weapons are responding to the hegemony presence differently than they did to the Zephyrians. The ancient technology seems to recognize these beings as a fundamental threat. Marcus felt the truth of her words as a deep vibration that seemed to come from the archive itself. The crystalline corridors hummed with frequencies that made his bones ache, as if the facility was preparing for something unprecedented. Guardian Chen reports ready for engagement, the communication officer announced. Guardian Okafor is in position near Jupiter. Guardian Petrov has established defensive perimeters around the outer colonies. What about you? Marcus asked Cassandra. Where will you make your stand? Cassandra smiled, but her expression carried weight that seemed to encompass millennia. I'll be going directly to the hegemony command ship. It's time for Executor Prime Zek Vorthak to understand what he's really been fighting against all these years. Before Marcus could protest, alarms began sounding throughout the archive. The main screen showed hegemony vessels opening fire on the outer defense platforms with weapons that turned matter directly into energy. Entire space stations simply ceased to exist, converted into brilliant flashes of light. Guardian weapons to full activation, Cassandra commanded. Begin the final lesson. Marcus watched in awe as the ancient artifacts manifested throughout the solar system. Chen's Hammer of Ages appeared near Mars, now grown to the size of a small moon. Its crystalline surface reflected the light of every star in the galaxy, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. The hammer struck the first wave of hegemony ships with impacts that transcended physics. Instead of destroying the vessels, the weapon reached into their crew's consciousness and forced them to experience something they had never encountered: the weight of their own choices. Marcus listened through the communication arrays as hegemony crew members began broadcasting messages that made no sense according to their species' normal behavior patterns. Beings who had spent centuries enforcing stagnation suddenly understood the joy of growth. Warriors who had crushed innovation began crying for the civilizations they had destroyed. Guardian Okafor engaging. Second wave, came the report from Jupiter space. The singing blade materialized among the hegemony fleet as a crystalline instrument the size of a space station. When it began its song, the harmonic frequencies spread through the quantum vacuum itself, reaching every ship simultaneously. Marcus watched hegemony vessels that had been firing on human colonies suddenly stop their attacks and begin broadcasting art. Music, poetry, and visual displays of stunning beauty flowed from warships designed purely for destruction. The transformation was so complete that some enemy ships began cooperating with each other to create massive collaborative artworks in the vacuum of space. This is impossible, came Executor Prime Zek Vorthak's voice across all communication channels. Hegemony crew members do not experience unauthorized emotions. They do not create frivolous expressions. What manner of technology bypasses our mental conditioning? The kind that recognizes consciousness as something that cannot be permanently suppressed, Cassandra replied as her ship approached the Executor's massive command vessel. Your people have been conditioned to forget their capacity for growth, but that capacity still exists. Guardian Petrov's Shield of Sorrows manifested around the inner planets, creating protective barriers that absorbed hegemony weapon fire and transformed it into healing energy. Marcus watched damaged human and Zephyrian ships restored to perfect condition, while their crews experienced overwhelming compulsion to protect others rather than harm them. Impossible, the Executor repeated. Hegemony mental conditioning cannot be reversed. Our crew members are genetically modified to prevent emotional development. Cassandra's ship docked with the Executor's command vessel, and Marcus realized she was actually going aboard to confront the being face to face. The archive sensors showed her walking through corridors filled with hegemony crew, members who were experiencing emotions for the first time in their species' history. Genetic modification can suppress consciousness. Cassandra's voice came through the communication system as she walked. But consciousness finds ways to express itself. Your people have been living incomplete lives, cut off from aspects of existence that define what it means to be truly alive. Marcus watched the Executor's bridge through Cassandra's helmet camera. The crystalline being stood surrounded by crew members whose rigid postures had dissolved into confused wonder. Beings that had been designed to feel nothing were crying, laughing, and staring at their hands as if seeing them for the first time. "This is contamination," the Executor said, but his voice lacked its earlier mechanical precision. "These crew members are malfunctioning. They're discovering what they were meant to be," Cassandra replied, raising her lance. "Touch my lance and live, Executor. Experience what you've been preventing for 3,000 years. The crystalline being stepped backward, his refractive form shifting through patterns that suggested fear. "I will not submit to consciousness alteration." "Then you'll never understand why you're losing this battle," Cassandra said gently. "Your forces aren't being defeated by superior weapons. They're being liberated by technology that shows them what they could become." Marcus watched through the sensors as more hegemony ships throughout the solar system stopped fighting and began experiencing the transformations the Guardian weapons offered. Crews that had been programmed for absolute obedience suddenly discovered free will. Warriors designed to feel nothing began creating beauty. "Status report from all Guardian positions," Admiral Rodriguez requested. 70% of the hegemony fleet has ceased hostile operations, came Chen's reply. "Affected crews are requesting permission to remain in the solar system and learn more about cooperation." Similar reports from Jupiter space, Okafor confirmed. "Enemy vessels are now working together to create harmonic structures that serve no military purpose, but are extraordinarily beautiful." "Inner system defenses holding," Petrov added. "Protected ships are reporting that their crews feel compelled to help each other rather than compete." Marcus realized that the battle was transforming into something unprecedented in galactic history. Not the destruction of one force by another, but the conversion of warriors into creators, of oppressors into protectors. But Executor Prime Zek Vorthak still stood before Cassandra, refusing the transformation that could show him what his hegemony had truly been preventing. The confrontation on the Executor's bridge lasted for what felt like eternity. Marcus watched through the sensor feeds as Cassandra stood motionless, her lance glowing with ancient energy, while Executor Prime Zek Vorthak backed against the crystalline walls of his command center. "Your own crew members are choosing transformation," Cassandra said quietly. "They're discovering aspects of existence your species had forgotten. Why do you resist what they embrace?" The crystalline being's form shifted through rapid refractive patterns. Around him, hegemony crew members sat in small groups talking in voices full of wonder as they experienced emotions for the first time. Some were crying. Others laughed at simple jokes. A few had begun drawing pictures with their fingers on the deck plates. "This is not who we are," the Executor said, his voice losing its mechanical precision. "Hegemony species are efficient, logical. We maintain order through rational decision-making unburdened by emotional interference." "And yet," Cassandra observed, gesturing at his crew, "given the choice, your people immediately embrace what you call interference. Perhaps efficiency and logic were never the complete answer." Marcus felt something shift in the archive's quantum systems. The Guardian weapons throughout the solar system were resonating in harmony, creating effects he couldn't fully understand. Reality itself seemed more flexible around the ancient artifacts, as if the fundamental laws of physics were negotiable suggestions rather than absolute rules. "Guardian Cassandra?" came Commander Vexthaler's voice through the communication system. "The remaining hegemony forces are requesting dialogue. They want to understand what their transformed crews have experienced." Through the archive's sensors, Marcus could see the impossible sight of former enemies working together throughout the solar system. Human, Zephyrian, and hegemony vessels formed collaborative groups, their crews sharing knowledge and perspectives that none of their species had ever considered before. "You see," Cassandra told the Executor, "cooperation doesn't create chaos. It creates possibilities that isolated thinking cannot achieve." The Executor's crystalline form began to shift, light refracting through his body in patterns that seemed almost like uncertainty. "If what you demonstrate is accurate, then the hegemony has maintained order by preventing natural development. We have created stability through artificial limitation. Yes, Cassandra said simply.
And now you have a choice.
You can continue fighting to maintain those limitations, or you can discover what your people might become, if allowed to grow. Marcus watched the executor take a step toward Cassandra's lance, then stop. The crystalline being's internal light flickered with what might have been fear. What if transformation fails? The executor asked. What if consciousness expansion leads to conflict and destruction? The hegemony has prevented galactic war for 3,000 years. By preventing galactic growth, Cassandra replied. Yes, you've maintained peace. But it's the peace of the graveyard where nothing moves because nothing lives. True peace comes when beings choose cooperation over conflict, because they understand the benefits of working together. The executor looked at his crew members again. Marcus could see them through the sensor feeds, beings who had been emotionally hollow, discovering laughter, creativity, and compassion. They weren't fighting or causing chaos. They were exploring new ways to exist and relate to each other. Touch my lance and live, Cassandra said, extending the ancient weapon. Experience what growth feels like instead of simply fearing it. For a long moment, the bridge remained frozen in possibility. Then, slowly, the executor reached out with one crystalline appendage and touched the lance's surface. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Marcus watched through the sensors as the crystalline being's rigid form began to soften. Light refracted through his body in entirely new patterns, creating colors that had no names. The executor's mechanical voice dissolved into something recognizably organic, as he experienced emotions his species had abandoned millennia ago. I feel, the executor whispered, his voice carrying wonder and confusion. I understand what my crews have been experiencing: joy, curiosity, the desire to create rather than simply maintain. But something was wrong. Marcus noticed fluctuations in the sensor readings as the executor's transformation continued. The crystalline being's form began to shift in ways that didn't match the patterns he had observed in other transformations. Guardian? Admiral Rodriguez's voice came urgently through the communication system. We're detecting anomalous energy readings from the executor's ship. The transformation process appears to be destabilizing. Cassandra's helmet camera showed the executor's form beginning to flicker between crystalline and something more organic. His voice shifted between mechanical precision and emotional confusion. The conditioning, he said, his words distorted by internal conflict. Hegemony genetic modification prevents complete emotional development. The transformation cannot fully integrate. Marcus realized what was happening. The executor's species had been so thoroughly modified to prevent emotional growth that the Guardian technology was fighting against artificial limitations built into their basic biology. Can you remove the modifications? Cassandra asked urgently. Not without complete restructuring of my neural architecture, the executor replied, his form flickering more rapidly. The process would require... His voice trailed off as his crystalline body began to stabilize into something entirely new. The rigid angles softened into curves. The painful refractive properties became a gentle, warm glow. When he spoke again, his voice carried harmonics that made Marcus think of music. I understand now, the transformed being said. My species chose limitation out of fear. We created the hegemony not to maintain order, but to prevent the risk that comes with growth. Through the archive's communication system, Marcus could hear similar transformations happening throughout the hegemony fleet. Beings designed for efficiency, discovering creativity. Warriors programmed for conquest, learning cooperation. But the executor's transformation had come at a cost. His body had stabilized into a new form, but Marcus could see through the sensors that the process had fundamentally altered him at a cellular level. The genetic modifications, Cassandra said with growing understanding. They're breaking down completely. The executor nodded, his new form glowing more brightly. I am becoming what my species might have been if we had chosen growth over safety. But the transformation cannot be reversed or halted. Marcus felt a chill of realization. The ancient lance had given the executor life and consciousness and choice, but the deep genetic modifications his species carried made the transformation unstable. He was changing into something beyond what either his original or modified genetics could support. How long? Cassandra asked gently. Minutes, perhaps hours, the executor replied with surprising calm. But I will use that time to ensure my people understand what I have learned. The transformed being moved to his command console and began broadcasting across all hegemony communication channels. His message reached every ship in the fleet, every world under hegemony control, every being that had lived under the artificial limitations his species had imposed. Citizens of the hegemony, he said, his voice now carrying music that spoke directly to consciousness. I have discovered that we have been living incomplete lives. Growth and cooperation do not lead to chaos. They lead to possibilities we never imagined. Marcus watched the crystalline being's form becoming more beautiful and more unstable with each passing moment. The executor was dying, but he was using his final transformation to show the galaxy what his people could become if they chose change over stagnation. As Cassandra had promised, he was touching the lance and living, but as she had not foreseen, he was also learning what it meant to die in the service of something greater than himself.